Please remain standing, and the scripture reading is taken from Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 through 6. And it shall come to pass, if thou hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. Blessed shalt thou be in the city, and blessed shalt thou be in the field. Blessed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy ground, and the fruit of thy cattle, the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep. Blessed shall be thy basket and thy store. Sixth and last. Blessed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and blessed shalt thou be when thou goest out. This is the word of the Lord. Let us bow your heads for prayer. Father, how great you are. We thank you for this another wonderful evening. We thank you for the privilege of coming into your house. We thank you for guiding our steps. We went out today and we came back in, and you have spared us from all harms and accident, and we thank you. We praise you and we worship you tonight. Father, as we come, we are asking you that you will empty us of everything that is unlike you, and please send your Holy Spirit to be with us. This evening, Lord, is another evening where the speaker will be presenting your words. We are asking you, God, that you will anoint her voice, give her clear eyesight. And Father, we are asking you that you will give us the understanding. And help us, O Lord, that we will not only be listeners, but we will be doers. Remember those who are coming. Please hasten their step, keep them safe from all harm and accident. And Father, when you shall come, may none of us be missing from you, but because we would have loved and serve you, we'll go home to live with you. This is my prayer for us all. In Jesus' name, amen. Please be seated.
God is good and greatly to be praised. I just want to welcome everyone here to another night's meeting, but we're learning a lot. And God is good that He has sent Barbara O'Neill here to teach us what she has gathered over the years. At the end of this, we have our health fair on the 15th. Everyone know about it? And our health fair, we will be showcasing a lot. We have been making natural soap. Sister Yuma and myself, we learned the last time we had a health program, we had someone came and taught us how to make. So we made a lot of soap, and we're going to give them out, give samples, so people can see. We bought organic stuff, with oil and all that to make the soap, and they smell nice. We put lavender and stuff in them. So if you come, you will get a sample, and we're hoping that you can probably purchase them from us. But we will only do it as you order, and then because we are not a big corporation. So we can't put stuff in storage, So if you like it and you order it, we'll make it. So we'll have that available. Also, we know everyone is worried about corona and washing your hands. And my sister over here, Michelle, she's making natural hand sanitizer that you can make yourself. We're going to give you the recipe, but you're going to have samples when you come to the health fair. These are some of the things that we're going to have. Also, we have different chefs in the church who's going to be making everything that we're giving free. It's going to cost us. That's why we ask for a generous offering, because we do not want people to come and can't get what they need. Because when Jesus was on earth, everything he gave, it was free. So we ask for you to help us by giving us a generous offering to help us to defray all the expenses. I remember when the first time I was doing it, my pastor said, "You don't have the money." I don't have the money, but God's people have the money. So I don't worry, and we work together as a team. So I do, so we have no fear. When Sister Yuma and I were buying the stuff for the soap, we use our own money to buy it, but we say we're doing it for God's people. and for the neighborhood that we live in, because they need to know a better way of life. And here we're talking about the chemicals, and so we have to show you how you can get that. So we're going to give you the recipe, and we're also going to give you a sample. So you can order from us, or you can make it yourself, you know. So, and there's other stuff that a lot more stuff that we're doing at the health fair. We're going to be getting your cholesterol check done, and this will be free of cost. And then we're going to have people to counsel you and, you know, tell you what to do. And we're going to give away free coconut, cane, stuff, you know. It's a big thing for us for the health fair. And as the church, we want to come out and let the community know that we are the hub where you can know about health care, that we are not scared of the virus. If you have a problem, come and we will tell you how to protect yourself. So, because that's what God intended for us to do. So if we should not be scared and we run away, I'm going to stay away, because we should be the one teaching them how. Because this is just a dry run. If we can't do it now, what are we going to do to time of trouble? We have to be able to stand up and be counted. People should be running to us and say, let's go to the Adventist church because they know how to do it.
Amen. Amen.
Okay? So, I have bought some envelopes. No? She said someone asked a question about the fair? Yeah. From 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sunday. Now, when they collect offering in church, especially on Sabbath, if you throw the offering in the plate, it does not go to it goes to wherever it's designated. It might be, the conference might have something that it's designated for. But I went out and I bought special envelopes. So when you put the offering, if you put it in this envelope, it will go directly towards the health program. If you put it just put it in the offering plate, you're still giving to God, but it will not go to the program that you intend for it to go. So if you intend for it to go to the health program, especially on Sabbath and Saturday night, please, and I want you to go home and pray and ask God what he has laid on your heart to give. So we're going to collect an offering tomorrow at the break, before the break. We're going to collect, and when the first lecture is done, we're going to collect the offering tomorrow, and then we'll do another one on Friday, okay? So I am asking you, you can take your envelope, you can ask God to tell you exactly how much. Because, you know, and when I ask people to do that and they talk to God, I never fall short. Because God always makes it, yes. So we're going to hear Barbara O'Neill to speak. But before she comes, we're going to have a special song. And then the next voice you hear will be of Sister Barbara O'Neill. Thank you.
Amen.
My stubborn will at last hath yielded. I would be thine and thine alone. And this the prayer my lips are bringing. Lord, let in me thy will be done. Sweet will of God, still fold me closer till I am only lost in thee. Sweet will some path has dreary grown, but now a light has risen to cheer me. I find in thee my star, my sun. Sweet will of God still folds me closer till I am wholly lost in thee. Sweet will of God still folds me closer till I am wholly lost in thee. Shut in with thee, O Lord, forever. My wayward feet no more to roam. What part from thee my soul can savor? The center of God's will, my home. Sweet will of God still folds me closer till I am wholly lost in thee. Sweet will of God still folds me closer till I am wholly lost in thee. Sweet will of God still folds me closer till I am wholly lost in thee. Sweet will of God still folds me closer till I am wholly lost in thee.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's lecture, where I'm going to be talking about your project manager. Your project manager is your liver, and your liver lives under your right rib. And as the project manager, everything that comes into your body first goes to the liver. And as the project manager, everything that comes out of your body comes out under the jurisdiction. God has said in the Bible, in 3, verse 16 and 17, he says, "Know ye not, that ye are the temple of God, and the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? If any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy. For the temple of God is holy, which temple ye are." Many people are defiling the temple of God in ignorance. Many people do not realize that what they're doing to their body is little by little defiling it. And this verse says, "If any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy." God is not a God of anger. He is a God of mercy. And he certainly understands when people are defying their body in ignorance. How could this be? It is because there is a great deceiver out there. And the Bible says in Revelation 12 that he has deceived the whole world. It's a deception, deceiving people so that they do not realize they are defiling the body. The liver lives under your right rib. Project manager. And if it is quite toxic, the project manager, the liver, wraps it up in fat and stores it. And if possible, the liver will break it down to a substance that can be easily released out of the body. We had a Vietnam veteran come to our health program. I think it was in Vietnam that the first chemical warfare was used. And a lot of those soldiers were contaminated with chemicals. And a lot of them have died. And a lot of them have sighed, or their children have been born with disabilities because of the chemicals they were exposed to in the Vietnam War. And this Vietnam veteran said to me, "My doctor says that I must not lose weight." Why did the doctor say that? Because what's in his fat cells? Remember, anything that is very toxic that comes into the body, the liver says, wrap it up in fat and store it. What we're going to look at today is what the liver does with everything that comes in, and then we're going to look at what the liver does with everything that comes out. So let's have a look at the liver. The liver is the largest internal organ in the body, and the liver is the largest of all the internal organs, and it also has the ability to regrow. That's why you can give a partial liver transplant, because it will grow. And as we go through this, you can understand why God made it so. Because the things that defile the body, a lot of the things, it is the liver that is dealing with it. And when the Bible says, if any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy. God often doesn't have to destroy, because the very defilement of the body is destroying it. And remember, many are sick in ignorance. Absolutely. And so all the environmental poisons, or a lot of them that come in, if they are toxic, the body will store it in the fat cells. And here they are, the fat cells. Let's have a look at what the liver does with the food that we're eating. Never in the history of mankind have human beings eaten so many carbohydrates. Let's do a carbohydrate assessment. If we go into the supermarket, we can tell what the majority of people are eating, because that's usually, mostly, what you see. Because with what is sold, it really is demand and supply, isn't it? And there is a whole aisle devoted to cereal. There is a whole aisle devoted to bread. Is this right? High bread, high cereal consumers. Let's say pastries. Pastries will include things like donuts and cookies and pies and muffins, all of those things. And this is quite big in America, but not so in Australia. Pretzels, yeah? They're quite big. Also pasta and pizza and rice is another carbohydrate that is eaten a lot of. Potatoes, we call them potato chips. Think you call them French fries. And pure crystallized acid that's been extracted from the sugarcane plant. Would you agree with me? In fact, if we explored even the pastries section, this list could be twice as long. All of these foods break down in the gastrointestinal tract to a singular structure called glucose. Tomorrow night we're going on a journey through your gastrointestinal tract where I will show you what the body does with the food we eat and how it breaks it down to these tiny structures. That glucose, it's only as glucose, can now, this food, be taken into the blood. It goes on the M1 main highway straight to project manager, the liver, and then the liver determines where that glucose goes. The first place that it will send the glucose is to what I call the CBD, the Central Business District of the human body. I'm going to take you inside the cell and show you what happens with the glucose inside the cell. I'll be covering this again in the next couple of nights. So the glucose goes in, it goes through a 20-step pathway, and the 20-step pathway gives us 2 units of energy. Isn't that why we eat? To get energy, so we can see and hear and the heart can beat, every cell in the body. The end result of the 20-step pathway is a chemical form of glucose called pyruvate. And pyruvate, as the chemical form of glucose, gets fed into the 8-step pathway. Even though it's only an 8-step pathway, it's called the powerhouse of the cell because of its ability to give us 36 units of energy. How come a 20-step pathway only gives us 2 units? And how come an 8-step pathway gives us 36 units? The difference is oxygen. This pathway uses oxygen to give energy. This pathway here, no oxygen. As we go through other lectures, we'll also be looking at that again. But today we're looking at the journey of glucose. So the first place the liver sends the glucose is to the cell to be taken through those little energy cycles. But on a high carbohydrate diet, we've still got glucose left over. And so now the liver causes it to be stored like a little bunch of grapes, and they're little molecules of glucose. These little molecules of glucose are stored like a little bunch of grapes. They're called quick-release glucose stores, and they're called glycogen. Glycogen is a name given to quick-release glucose stores. And this is why the best time to exercise is before breakfast in the morning. Well, how will you get the energy if you haven't eaten? It's your glycogen stores already sitting in your muscle cell. And when we look at diabetes on Thursday night, I will show you how this is a powerful piece of information for people with diabetes, because you've got to store there. It's your glycogen stores. So as I was doing my crunches and my push-ups this morning, I hadn't eaten breakfast. Where was I getting my energy? It was from my glycogen stores, already in the muscle cell, just waiting to be plucked. What causes them to be plucked? When we move them and we need them. But on a high carbohydrate diet, we've still got glucose left over. And so now the liver causes it to be stored in the most amazing fuel depot in the human body. It is fat cells. Now, what I've given you here is just the basic science. And you can see by that fat doesn't make you fat. What makes you fat? It is the carbohydrates. That's right. That's right. It's stored as triglycerides. You've heard of triglycerides? Isn't triglycerides a marker for heart disease? And where does it come from? Not the fat. It comes from the excess carbohydrates. And what's happening to Americans today on this high carbohydrate diet? What's happening to them? They're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, there's a few diets today that talk about this, but I'm going to start at the 1850s. Gary Taubes, in his book, Good Calories, Bad Calories, he looks at a man named William Banting in the mid-1800s, putting on weight, went to a very famous doctor called Dr. Claude Bernard. And this doctor put him on a carbohydrate-free diet. At the time, it was called starches. So what did he eat? He ate a lot of vegetables, with the exclusion or the great reduction of potatoes. He ate meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs. So there's a lot of protein there and fat. It seemed like quite an extreme diet. But William Banting lost weight. Why did he lose weight? Well, when you're not giving your body this quick release glucose stores from the carbohydrates, your liver can convert your fat stores back to glucose. It's called gluconeogenesis, creating new glucose from the fat stores. So the weight's just falling off him. He has lots of energy because these three foods keep the food in the stomach longer, as you'll see tomorrow night when we go through our gut journey. He had lots of energy. The weight was just falling off him. He was never hungry because these foods keep the food in the stomach longer. As he found the perfect diet. He was so impressed with this. It was such a powerful form of weight loss. Never hungry, lots of energy, weight just falling off him. He wrote a paper on it, and when the paper went out, many people went on this diet. And it got to the point that people were talking and they'd say, "You want a diet? Yeah. Are you doing the Bant? Are you doing the Bant?" It was William Banting's paper. Let's fast forward to the 1980s. What diet does this sound like? Dr. Robert Atkins. His book was #1 on the New York Times best-selling list 4 years running. Doctors and nutritionists hated him. Someone loved him. Who loved him? The people. Because what were they interested in? Something that works. And it worked. It worked. You know what the Bible says in 1 Thessalonians 5:21? Prove all things and hold fast to that which is good. Let's fast forward now to 2020. What diet does this sound like? Paleo, FODMAP, zone diet, beach diet, keto. Aren't they the common diets? Isn't it the same thing? Let me go back to Atkins for a minute. He only did it for weight loss. And it was powerful for that. But what he found after a year, his diabetics were coming off their medication. We'll explore that more on Thursday night. You see, high carbohydrate, high demands on the pancreas. Low carbohydrates, low demands on the pancreas. Pancreases were reviving because they weren't being screamed at all day. Atkins also found that his patients with high cholesterol levels were coming back to normal. And what are they eating? Meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs. And what are we told? If you want to get your cholesterol levels down, stop eating meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs. He scratched his head on this. His cancer patients were going into remission. Now on, Monday night? Monday night we looked at microbes in disease. Yeah, that was last night. And I showed you how cancer cells consume 15 times the glucose of any other cell. So on a low carbohydrate diet, the cancer cells were basically being starved. What Atkins did was he decided to investigate. Don't you love it when someone asks why? They begin to investigate. And what he found was that fiber, protein, and fat are the 3 essential nutrients, which is basically what his diet was high in. And the non-essential nutrient, and this one might surprise you, the non-essential nutrient is carbohydrates. Now let me define this. Carbohydrates are not bad. Did everyone hear that? What a relief. We love them. Carbohydrates are not bad. It's only when they're overdone and refined. And how many Americans overdo and refine the carbs? But because it's the non-essential one, this is your negotiating part of the meal. And your negotiations change depending on your height, depending on your size, depending on your weight, depending on your sex, depending on your physical, mental output through the day, and depending on your health. If someone wanted to drastically conquer diabetes, what would they stop? The carbs. Someone to lose weight, what would they stop? It's not forever. It's just until you conquer the problem. Now, all the diets I have quoted to you, the Banting diet, the Atkins diet, all the modern ones, the keto, where do they say you've got to get your protein and fat from? Meat, animal. Let me show you how you can do it on a vegetarian diet. Let me show you actually how you can do it on a vegan diet. Because vegetarian can imply eggs and cheese, yeah? And we're going to go to the best medical book that was ever written. It's God's Word, the Bible. And we're going to go to the Garden of Eden, and we're going to have a look at what God said to Adam and Eve. We're going to have a look at the foods. We're going to have a look at the protein content. We're going to have a look at the carbohydrate content. And we're going to go to Genesis 1:29, where God said to Adam and Eve, "Behold, I've given you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth." What's a herb-bearing seed? A herb-bearing seed is a grain. A herb-bearing seed is a legume. A herb-bearing seed is a seed. So let's go to the grain. Wheat, rye, barley, oats, amaranth, buckwheat, quinoa, so many grains. Grains are high in protein, but they are also high in carbohydrates. How many on our carbohydrate list are from grain? So we've got grain, 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 grain. The majority on our carbohydrate list are from the grain section. What's a legume? That's a bean. That's cannellini beans, Great Northern beans, kidney beans, garbanzo beans, lentil beans, so many beans. In fact, if you go into an Indian supermarket, you get about 5 different types of just lentils. So many different types. Legumes are high in protein and medium to low in carbohydrate. Now, I was intrigued when I was looking at the paleo book, why don't they like legumes? And when I read it, they said they're indigestible. People get wind from them. And I kept reading, and right down the bottom it said, but if they're well soaked and well rinsed, you can digest them. There's a book called Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon, and she has a look at the way food was traditionally cooked. And in India, in Lebanon, Italy, the Greek islands, where they didn't have a lot of land to graze the cattle, so traditionally their protein came from legumes. In fact, if you want to know how to cook legumes, get an Indian cookbook. They know. I stayed in India about 18 months ago. I was there for 5 days, and they said, "What will we feed you?" I said, "Dal." Have you heard of dal? It's, a legume dish. I said, "Every meal. I'm happy every meal." So that's 10 meals in 5 days, 2 meals a day. I never had 2 the same. And the flavours were outstanding. They know how to cook their legumes. On Friday morning, we're going to be looking at food, and we're going to be discussing, and I'm going to show you how to prepare your legumes. They've got to be soaked overnight, then they've got to be rinsed, then they've got to be brought to the boil, and then rinsed again. You know all the froth that comes up? Guess what that is? Wind, gas. Yeah, you've got to get rid of that. And then when they're half cooked, rinse them well, and then put them in the sauce. And then let them cook slowly in the sauce and take on all the flavours. And they are digestible. At our health retreats that we run, I'll be at Denver, Colorado next week, we serve legumes every single day on the eating days. And I've had people say, "I can't handle legumes." And they eat ours and they say, "I'm not having any trouble." It's because of the way they're prepared. So that's important. Seed. What's a seed? Pumpkin seed, sesame seed, sunflower seed, chia seed, flaxseed or linseed, same thing. Seeds are high in protein and they are quite low in carbohydrate. So God said, "Behold, I've given you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree in the which of the trees a fruit-bearing seed." What's a fruit-bearing seed? That's your nut. Your nut comes from the fruit of the tree. We have so many different nuts: macadamia, cashew, pecan, walnut, almond, Brazil, hazelnut, so many nuts. Nuts are high in protein and quite low in carbohydrate. So to ensure that you're getting your 3 essentials, my suggestion is to increase the legume, nut, seed part of your meal, and to ensure that you don't overdo the non-essential, decrease the grain part of the meal. That's an easy way to do it. So instead of 2 cups of rice and a cup of lentil dal, you do 1 cup of rice, 2 cups of lentil dal, and a salad. Can you see how you just change the... And instead of using bread for a wrap, use lettuce leaves for a wrap. So there's many ways that you can do it. It's just getting those carbohydrates down. Many on this high carbohydrate diet are missing out on their essentials and overdoing their non-essentials. You see that? On Thursday night, when we look at heart health and diabetes, you will see very clearly there that this diet is contributing majorly to the heart disease and the diabetes, actually also the eczemas and the psoriasis that we are seeing today. So that's how you can do it on a vegan diet. One of the reasons most people stop the fat is to get their cholesterol levels down. Is that right? Well, the liver makes cholesterol, and it makes cholesterol according to the body's demands. And there's a book called The Great Cholesterol Con by Dr. Malcolm Kendrick, who's a cardiovascular surgeon. He says for the first time, normal levels of a normal vital body substance is being called a disease. It's actually not true. And he also states in his book that there is no proof. Did you hear that? There is no proof that cholesterol causes heart disease. I'm going to touch on it tonight, but I'm going to explore it in more detail when we look at heart health. 80% of the cholesterol that your liver makes is made from glucose. And 20% of the cholesterol that your liver makes is made from fat. Now that one piece of information alone tells you it's not the butter on the bread, it's the bread under the butter. It is not the olive oil on the pasta, it's the pasta under the olive oil. You see that? In fact, the wrong guy's been shot. He's getting shot because of who he hangs around with, which is this high carbs, the high carbohydrate diet. And this also explains why Dr. Atkins found that his patients' cholesterol levels were coming down. But I'm going to give you one more piece of information. I'll explore it more in the heart health lecture. I had a lady do one of our programs in Alabama, and she was 69. She said, I'm a nutritionist and I have the advantage of being trained in university 40 years ago. She said 40 years ago, a cholesterol level of 300 and under was perfectly normal. Now, if you have a cholesterol level above 200 today, what are you told? Wow, you got to go on something immediately. We should never make a decision on fear, but we should make a decision on facts. It's the number one killer in today's heart disease. Has heart disease reduced since they've changed the figures? Has heart disease reduced in this effort to get everyone under 200? No, not at all. But something has increased, and that is the part of the body is failing that loves cholesterol. It's the fattiest organ in the body. It's the brain. I had a lady, she's a midwife. She's in her 80s. She worked in Africa for a while, and she said, we found that the babies' brains weren't developing. And when we investigated, the women were watering down the powdered milk. And what it meant was that the babies' brains weren't getting enough fat. So the myelin sheath around the nerve cell wasn't developing properly, and these babies' brains weren't developing properly. The fattiest food on the planet with the highest cholesterol levels is breast milk in the first month of life. Why? Because that developing brain cannot develop without fat. In fact, it cannot develop without cholesterol. Let's go to the other end of the scale. What's happening to our elderly people? Alzheimer's, dementia. And the side effect of cholesterol-lowering medication is Alzheimer's, dementia, memory loss. How many people blame age? Muscle wasting, and they've just added another one, breast cancer. Yeah, the great deceiver's been added again. So putting people on statin drugs, putting people on cholesterol-lowering medication, lowering the levels has made not one dot of difference to heart disease. And what's the definition of insanity? To do what you've always done and expect different results. I mention this now because the liver is the organ that makes cholesterol. We'll explore that more on Thursday night. At our health retreats, our guests go through 2 days of juices. So they come in on Sunday, they have a most delicious lunch, giving them something to dream about for 2 days. And then Monday and Tuesday, they have juices. And their liver begins to detox because we're not giving them enough fuel to run on. And so their liver starts to break down fat stores to give the excess glucose they need. But something else a little bit more sinister is being released. It's the fat-soluble toxins that have been building up in our fat cells all our life. Those fat-soluble toxins cannot be released in a fat-soluble state. And so it's the liver's role to break it down to a water-soluble state. Then it can be released out. And the liver does it in 3 phases. So when the detox begins, phase 1 begins. In phase 1, the liver takes this fat-soluble toxin and it breaks it down to a metabolite. A metabolite simply means the first stage of metabolism or breakdown. And this metabolite can be sometimes 100 times more toxic than it originally was. This metabolite creates a lot of free radicals, and this metabolite is highly volatile. And you might say, well, what's the liver doing? It's just created a substance that is far more toxic than it originally was. That is true. But it's like when you clean out the kitchen cupboards. Your kitchen's 100 times messier than when it started. When you started. It's like when you clean out the garden shed. It looks 100 times messier than when you started. It's a process. And your liver has certain needs at this stage. In phase 1, your liver needs antioxidants. Antioxidants are called free radical scavengers. And antioxidants, they basically mop up all the extra free radicals. A free radical is an electron short, and antioxidants come with a lot of extra electrons, calms it down. The most potent antioxidant is beta-carotene. And beta-carotene is found in your orange and your green-coloured vegetables. So at our retreat, we give our guests, the main juice we give them is carrot, celery and apple juice, high in beta-carotenes. Vitamin C. Vitamin C is a potent antioxidant. Because of the coronavirus, there's been a flurry of people buying vitamin Cs. And it's a potent antioxidant, but when you buy vitamin C, make sure it's ascorbic acid with bioflavonoids. That's how it's found in nature, in your fruits and your vegetables. By the way, they tested all the foods. We have a supermarket called Woolies, and I guess it's like your Walmart. And they tested all the fruits and vegetables in there, and the oranges had no vitamin C. And the food that had the highest vitamin C was cabbage. But I see that in a lot of your shops you have organic options, they're much higher in vitamin C. The other potent antioxidant is vitamin E, and vitamin E is a fat-soluble vitamin. And we give our guests protein drinks every second juice. And that has some almond milk and some coconut milk in it. That's supplying the vitamin E. I'm going to write this sideways because these are not antioxidants, but they are required in phase 1 of the liver's detox. That's minerals and vitamin B. So we give our guests vitamin B supplements. The minerals are found in the juices and in all the Celtic salt that they have and the broth they have at night. Within 36 hours of beginning a detox, phase 2 kicks in. In phase 2, the liver takes this highly toxic metabolite and it joins it together. It joins it together. The medical term is conjugate. It conjugates or joins it together with amino acids. The union of that toxic metabolite and the amino acid creates the water-soluble state. And remember, as a water-soluble, it can be easily released out of the body. Phase 3 happens in conjunction with phase 2. And in phase 3, the body takes this water-soluble state and it releases it out via your sweat glands. It releases it out via your kidneys as urine, and it releases it out via your colon. These are 3 main organs of elimination that are eliminating the waste. This information I have just given you has only been known since probably about 2001, the 3-phase of the liver detox, the way that the liver breaks down the fat-soluble toxins. So when the Vietnam veteran did our program, I gave him a protein drink every juice because he needed those amino acids to conjugate or join together with that toxic metabolite to produce the water-soluble state. And so the needs in phase 2 of the liver is protein. And how many people that go on a fast take protein? Not really. We are dealing with more fat-soluble toxins than any generation that's ever lived on the planet. I usually say we are subjected to 30,000 new chemicals every year. But I was listening to a health presenter recently. He said 100,000 new chemicals every year. And I was talking to a pest control man that did our program. I said, is it true that ladies can buy in the supermarket chemicals for their home that you are forbidden to use? He said, yes. Be careful what's in that supermarket. I also warned about what's in hand sanitizers. Have a look at what's in them. Read the ingredients. And as I showed you last night, we're going to get away from this kill mentality because we're living organisms. We've got to encourage the good guys, and they will automatically keep under control the harmful pathogens. So praise God that He has given us a liver that can effectively detoxify us living on planet Earth in 2020. Because it's a pretty toxic place today, isn't it? Don't you often look around and say, oh, come quickly, Lord Jesus, come quickly. But I praise God that when you give the liver the right conditions, it can effectively detoxify you from these environmental poisons. This information shows us the importance of having a high fiber diet. the food with the highest fiber is your vegetables. And it's your vegetables that give you your beta-carotenes, your vitamin C's. We should be having generous protein. And unfortunately, I have met some very sick vegetarians. Have you? How many vegetarians are here? And you might have read in the writings of Ellen White that she said sugar is more toxic than meat. I was talking to a man from New York here, Dr. Carl Benjamin. He said to me, I used to be one of Dr. Atkins' patients. Very gracious man, he said. He was willing to work with you. He said, I believe if Dr. Atkins would have read the China study, Dr. Atkins would have become a vegetarian. Isn't that interesting? Dr. Atkins had the theory, but what he didn't have was the vegetarian protein. You can even do the ketogenic diet on a vegetarian diet. So what is the ketogenic diet's breakfast? 2 rashers of bacon, 4 eggs, and a 1/4 pound of butter. Bit hard to eat. How can you do that on a vegetarian diet? Bowl of lentils, couple of slices of tomato, half an avocado, maybe a bit of spinach, 8 nuts, and maybe a 1/4 cup of seeds. That sounds much more attractive, doesn't it? It has more carbohydrates than that ketogenic breakfast, but not much more. Not much more. So you can do it. Why would you do the ketogenic diet? To conquer diabetes, to conquer heart disease, to conquer epilepsy. And that's traditionally why the ketogenic diet was set up. Because they have found that when you are not giving the body the carbohydrates, then the liver breaks down the fat stores, and the liver converts those fats to ketones. And they have found that ketones are neurohealers, neuroprotectors. Bruce Fife has written 2 books about this subject. One's called Stop Autism Now. It's about all neurodegeneration in children. So it covers autism, epilepsy, Asperger's, also attention deficit syndrome. And he shows that the first thing to help a child conquer these problems is stop the wheat, dairy, refined sugar. And supplement with coconut oil. Start with a teaspoon 3 times a day. Build up to 4 teaspoons even 3 times a day. He calls it the coconut ketogenic diet. And then Stop Alzheimer's Now is about all adult neurodegeneration. So that's Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, Huntington's chorea, and adult epilepsy. And he again shows stop the wheat, dairy, refined sugar. And go on a diet that is high in fiber, generous proteins. He says meat, I say legumes, nuts and seeds. His theory is correct. And your healthy fats. And the healthy fats are fats that come from the hand of the Creator. And the coconut oil is an easily extracted fat because it's extracted from the flesh of the plant. So this really is your Garden of Eden diet. When God said, behold, I've given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree, and the which of the tree is a fruit bearing seed, the last thing he said is, the seed, to you it shall be for meat. You think of the seed, it's like the chicken's egg. And some say, oh, to get a complete protein, you have to have beans and rice. Have you heard that? Not true. Every seed has every essential amino acid, or life could not come out of that seed. Every seed in itself has the germinating principle, which is life. No, not true. They all contain that. So the seed, to you it shall be for meat. And you look at the seed. Each seed is high in fiber, generous protein, and healthy fats in each seed. So have another look at the seed. Include it in your diet. Include it often. So your high fiber diet, which is your vegetables, yes, and some fruits, and all plant-based foods have fiber. Generous proteins, there's your legumes, your nuts, your seeds. And the healthy fats. Fat is not the enemy. Dr. Atkins showed that fat is actually an essential nutrient. The membrane around every cell in the body is 50% protein, 50% fat. Except for the brain cell, the membrane around the brain cell is 70% fat. That's why it's the fattiest organ in the body. And that's why just as the young brains weren't developing properly when they didn't get enough fat, old brains are deteriorating because they're not getting enough fat. Because through fear, they've stopped the fat because they think it's going to clog their arteries. But it's not true. It's not true. I have 5 books at my health centre. Here are their names. The Great Cholesterol, The Great Cholesterol Deception by Dr. Peter Dingle. The Great Cholesterol Con by Dr. Malcolm Kendrick. The Great Cholesterol Myth by Johnny Bowden. The Great Cholesterol Lie by another cardiovascular surgeon called Dr. Dwight Lundell, who's performed 10,000 bypasses. And he's written a book, The Great Cholesterol Lie. Also, The Great Cholesterol Myth, did I say that when? By Johnny Bowden. We're running out of names. We're running out of names. So what causes heart disease? You're waiting with bated breath, and I know you can't wait till Thursday night, so let me quickly tell you now, it's damage to the arterial walls. Another book I have is by Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. It's called Put Your Heart in Your Mouth. And she spends the first 4 chapters showing all the things that damage the arterial wall. And when the arterial wall is damaged, God has put an amazing process in place to heal, to patch up that damaged wall. So here is the wall of the artery. You've got 2 different types of cholesterol. LDL, low density lipoprotein, sits on the edge. HDL, high density lipoprotein. So when the arterial wall gets damaged from chemicals, and how many chemicals are people exposed to? We are exposed to enough without choosing to be exposed. Have you had a good look at what's in your laundry cupboard? In your bathroom cupboard? In your hand sanitizers? In your clothes? Have a good look. They are all damaging the arterial wall. All of those chemicals are contributing to it. Mold. Have you been investigating if there's any mold in your house? You breathe in that, that can damage the arterial wall. Heavy metals like mercury can damage the arterial wall. What's going to plug up the hole? The repairer and the rebuilder. And so he plugs up the hole. But the people don't realize, because they've been deceived by the great deceiver, all of these things are damaging them. So what's happening in the arterial wall, students? It's getting narrow. Something else happens too. You've got little protein molecules, we all have, in our blood. There's the protein molecules. And on a high carbohydrate diet, releasing a lot of glucose into the blood, the glucose sticks to the protein molecules and it becomes sticky. And sometimes they get dislodged. Let's say we've got a narrow area here and one comes dislodged and gets stuck. That is, if it's in the carotid artery, there's your stroke. If it's in the heart muscle, cardiac arrest. That is the cause of heart disease. So what's the cause of heart disease? Is it cholesterol? To blame cholesterol is like blaming the fire trucks for the fire. To blame cholesterol is like blaming the ambulances for every accident. Well, they must cause it. They're always there. The number 1 cause of heart disease is damage to the arterial walls, causing the LDL to have to build up and this high carbohydrate diet. That explains why reducing fat and going on margarine instead of butter and everyone going on statin drugs and lowering the levels, it has not made one dot of difference to the number one killer in America and Australia today, which is heart disease. So I just gave you that little bit to appease your interest, and we will explore that in more detail on Thursday night when we look at diabetes and heart disease. So I trust that you look after your liver, treat it well, because cancer cannot get a hold on a body when the liver is working well. So make sure that liver goes through regular detoxes. How can you do that? Well, the most popular way of eating today, it's always been grazing, is that right? Grazing all day long. Well, everything's changed. Now it's intermittent fasting, yeah? Or the 5-2 diet, or they're calling it now time-restricted eating. And this is eating twice in a 24-hour period with a 6-hour difference. And Dr. Michael Mosley, he suggests eating at 1 and eating at 7, but I don't think that makes any sense at all, because by 1 o'clock I'd be failing. In fact, by 10 o'clock I'd be failing if I'd had no fuel. And if you eat a large meal at 7 o'clock at night, it's hard to sleep because you've got so much food in your stomach. And so what I suggest, and what we do at our retreat, is have breakfast at 7:30 and then lunch at 1:30. So there's your 6 hours. What's the old saying? We should be eating breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen. And we say tea, you say supper like a pauper. A lady said to me one day, "Barbara, I've heard you say this. What do paupers eat?" I said, "Nothing." When you do that, you're having an 18-hour fast every 24 hours. Isn't that an easy way to fast? And some people choose to do a 1-day fast a week, or 2 days fast a week, or 2 days a fortnight, or 2 days a month. It depends on what you can do, what suits you. You're the doctor. If it works, do it. If it doesn't work, keep adjusting till it does do it. But that allows a regular fast. It allows the liver to regularly start eating away at the fat-soluble toxins. So little by little by little, they're eliminated. If all the fat-soluble toxins would come out of our body right now, we'd all be dead. The body lets go of it little by little by little as you improve the conditions that you give your body for healing. I'm going to give everyone a break now. I'm on time tonight. It is 8 o'clock. I'd like you to have a 10-minute break, and please come back at 8:10. And when you come back, we're going to look at those little chemical messengers in your body called hormones. Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. Yes, I've got voice. Welcome back. This is a very important lecture because I find sometimes it's the missing link as to why someone is ill. It's an imbalance in the hormones. So I'm going to begin by going through some symptoms of a female having a hormonal imbalance, and then I'm going to go through the symptoms of a male having a hormonal imbalance. So for a female, it can be very early periods. Normal is 16 to 18, but you hardly ever hear of that today. And when a young girl gets her periods at 9, that means she's developed breasts at 8. That is too young. That's almost robbed her of her childhood. Another symptom of a hormonal imbalance is very painful periods, very heavy periods. Also, if a woman has tender breasts, premenstrual tension is not normal. Isn't that good news? How many women and men think that's normal? But today I'm going to show you how that can be turned around. What can also be a symptom of a hormonal imbalance in a woman is endometriosis. That's too much of the lining of the uterus growing, and it starts to wander through the abdominal wall. Fibroids in the uterus, cysts on the ovaries, polycystic ovarian syndrome, depression, heart, osteoporosis, thyroid problems. These can all be symptoms of a hormonal imbalance. What about in a male? In a male, some of the symptoms are low sperm count, also penile dysfunction, inability to hold an erection. Also, too much of the female hormone can cause a man to be effeminate, as too much of the male hormone can cause a woman to be masculine. But almost in Australia, you're not allowed to talk about such things. I'm just giving you the basic science here. Also, with a man, prostate problems. We didn't even know what that meant 4 years ago. So it's quite common today, is prostate problems. Men also can be affected by depression and heart disease. What I want to do this evening is I want to take you through the monthly cycle. I want to show you how it should run. I want to show you what throws it out. And then I'm going to show you how you can bring back the balance. So allow me to introduce you to the players that are in this dance of the hormones. It is like a dance. Different players come onto the stage at different times of the month. Notice that our sex hormones are made from cholesterol. If someone's on cholesterol-lowering medication, they can develop hormonal problems. Have you noticed they've just added another to the list of symptoms as side effect from cholesterol-lowering medication, and one is breast cancer. From cholesterol, the body makes pregnenolone, and from pregnenolone, the body makes progesterone. Progesterone is a key hormone because from progesterone, estrogen is made, from progesterone, testosterone is made, and from progesterone, the adrenal hormones are made. I'm going to explain it like a dance, so let me introduce you to the star players. One is progesterone, and progesterone is going to be wearing a green outfit in this dance. And progesterone's nickname is happy hormone. We've got a saying in Australia, it might be a saying in America too, happy wife, happy life. Is that right? There are many unhappy homes because the woman is suffering from lack of progesterone. We'll have a look at why that is so as we go through this. The other hormone in this dance is estrogen, wearing a red outfit. And estrogen's role is that of a cell proliferator. Cell proliferator basically means causes massive cell growth. It is estrogen that causes the skinny young girl to develop into a beautiful, shapely woman. But if estrogen levels remain high, the beautiful, shapely woman can away. I liken estrogen to good slave, bad. probably heard that in early December, Australia was on fire. Is that right? Well, when I went back home, I flew home from America on the 25th of December because it's the cheapest day to fly. No one flies on the 25th of December. And when I drove into it was black. It was black. And our staff have holidays in all of December. And our exercise coordinator, Howard, he's been with us 18 years. For the first 2 weeks of his 4 weeks of holidays, he fought fires. But the good news is none of our buildings were lost. And he told me the amazing story is for 2 weeks they couldn't see the sun, couldn't see this, it was just smoke. And he said one day they heard like a train, it was this freight train, this noise, and they went out the back to have a look and there were the flames. They didn't see them coming because it was all smoke. So they ran out and they started to fight it, and the flames came from 3 sides. And at the last minute, the wind changed and the fire went around their house. Praise be to God. What does the Bible say in Psalm 34, verse 19? Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. So I liken estrogen to fire and water. Good slave, bad master. Day 1 of the monthly cycle is the day that a woman begins to menstruate. And day 1 of the monthly cycle, estrogen levels are low. So we could say estrogen is backstage in this dance. Day 1 of the monthly cycle, estrogen levels are also low. But by day 7, they're rising. Up until day 14, estrogen becomes the star player in the dance of the hormones. Let's go to the stage where the dance is played out, which is the reproductive organs of a woman's body. So this is the uterus, they are the fallopian tubes, they're the ovaries, that's the cervix, and this is the birth canal. At this time of the month, estrogen is causing massive cell growth in the lining of the uterus, causing the blood nest to once again build up. Estrogen is causing massive cell growth in the ovaries, causing eggs to develop. Estrogen is also causing a form of lubricant to be released in the birth canal. By day 14, a fully developed egg bursts forth from the ovaries. The little filaments on the end of the fallopian tubes pull up that egg, and the fallopian tube is ever moving like this, causing the egg to move up, up, up in the fallopian tubes. Now the hole where the egg bursts forth develops a blister. And that blister is called Corpus Luteum. I have it in green because Corpus Luteum is the main site of progesterone production in a woman's body. Can you see the importance of a woman ovulating every month? Because every month when she ovulates, that's the release of the egg, Corpus luteum develops. So when she's ovulating every month, that helps to maintain her progesterone levels, which not only is the happy hormone, but progesterone is it's the precursor for all the other hormones, helping to keep them in their right levels. So by day 14, estrogen levels rise. By day 14, estrogen is given the message to go backstage. There is no need for estrogen now. We have our blood nest, we have our lubricant, we have our egg. What effect does progesterone have? Progesterone, as the happy hormone, heightens a woman's mood at this time of the month to the point of increasing her sexual desire at this time of the month. Progesterone also has a ripening effect on the lining of the uterus, putting the finishing touches on. But progesterone has another effect, and that is on the cervix. So let me magnify the cervix to show you what's happening. The cervix is the little gateway into the uterus. And looking at the cervix from top down, it is like a little cushion with a little button in the middle of it. Looking at it from sideways, it looks like this, with two lips and mucus plug in the middle. At this time of the month, the mucus plug goes, the outside cushion bit comes up a little tighter, and a special form of lubricant is released around the cervix. And this lubricant is designed specifically to facilitate the entry of sperm up into the uterus. So you can see the stages set for the entry of man. It is estimated between 2 and 500 million sperm are released with one ejaculation. It's the smallest cell in the human body. And so what I'm drawing here, these little dots, I think it's far, far smaller than that. When these sperm meet the top cervix, very difficult to gain entry. When the sperm meet this cervix, that lubricant literally grabs the sperm and shoots it up into the uterus. And it's got a long way to go. And some of them go down the wrong road and they basically die and are absorbed into the system. But some go down the right road and aha, they've found their prize, which is the egg. Now the covering of the egg looks like this. There are little folds like that. And the sperm has to nudge its head into these little sections where the folds meet each other. It's not easy. Finally, it makes entry. And when it makes entry, that little tail has to go and it comes into the egg. The minute it comes into the egg, all the other folds tighten up and chemicals are released to kill any other sperm that might try and get near the egg. Isn't that fascinating? What a miracle any of us are here. When you consider everything that has to be in place for the conception of a new human being, no wonder God put between 2 and 500 million. But just imagine for a moment the possibilities of different people on the planet. It's just incredible. Within, it is estimated, a few days of the sperm gaining entry into the egg, there's a division of 2 cells. And when that division happens, the DNA of a new human being is perfectly intact. There's a lot of discussion about when life begins. Knowing that, when does life begin? It actually begins before the woman even knows she's pregnant. In fact, a woman usually doesn't know she's pregnant until her period's late. Well, by then, she's 3 or 4 weeks pregnant. Is that right? I think there'll be some surprises on the resurrection morning, yes? What happens when a woman conceives? Then her progesterone levels soar 200%. No wonder we often say a woman is blossoming in pregnancy, yeah? No wonder her progesterone levels are soaring. I was pregnant or breastfeeding non-stop for 14 years. I breastfed 3 months into every pregnancy. And I breastfed my last baby for 3 years. That's the 14 years. Some people say, oh, you poor thing. I said, oh, no, it was wonderful. I love babies and progesterone levels high. What would it mean? There is life after babies. Then Michael and I have 20 grandchildren from 8 months to 21. Yeah. So what happens if a woman doesn't feel wonderful in pregnancy? Can you see it could indicate that she is lacking progesterone? And we'll have a look at why that is so. Even though there's only one progesterone, estrogen is a family of estrogen. There are 3. So estrone is called E1 and it has strong cell proliferator action. Estradiol is E2 and it has strong cell proliferator action. Estriol is called E3 and that's the delicate estrogen. And that it is that estrogen that rises in pregnancy. Let me comment on sperm for a moment. Sperm is an alien to woman's body. And as soon as sperm enters, her immune system rises to attack. But when sperm goes through the prostate gland of a man, it takes on an immune suppressant property. So when woman's immune system rises to attack, the immune suppressant property of sperm knocks back her immune system and sperm survives. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. But woman's body has memory. And every time her husband enters her, her immune system rises to attack and says, oh, it's husband, we'll just stand back. But can you just imagine for a very brief second how damaging this can be in the area of anal sex? Imagine how damaging it can be on a woman that has multiple partners. When we keep to God's design for man and woman, that contributes to the health. What about a pap smear? What is a pap smear? They used to take a little nick. Now they have a wire brush and they take a little scrape from the cervix. Let's say a woman has a pap smear and that night she is intimate with her husband. Just before she goes to sleep, in the presence of sperm, her immune system, remember, has to stand back, so it can't heal the wound. In fact, if she goes to sleep straight after they're intimate, and so the immune system can't go back on the job till morning when gravity causes it to come away. Let's say she's a very sexually active woman, and this is happening 2 nights out of 3. 6 months later, she has another pap smear. Why is she having so many? Her mother died of cervical cancer, so she's been told she has to have 6 monthly pap smears. Let's say after 6 months, she has another one, and they happen to take a scrape on the same spot, and the test comes back, abnormal cells. What caused the abnormal cells? The first pap smear that was never allowed to heal. A woman should be told that for 4 weeks after a pap smear not to allow sperm to enter her. Would it take 4 weeks to heal? Not in a healthy woman, but there are some women that don't go to bed till late. They're living on coffee and sugar. They never exercise. They don't drink enough water. It would take 4 weeks for that woman. If a woman is a healthy woman, she's going to bed early, she's exercising, she's drinking her water, having nourishing food and not taking stimulants, she should heal in 10 days. One lady said, my husband can't wait 4 weeks. I said, well, he has to wear a condom, or he has to master the art of withdrawal. If you ask me, should you have a pap smear, I will not tell you what to do. You can ask me what I do, and I don't think I have to answer it because I think you already know. So what causes the imbalance? By the way, what happens if there's no conception? If there's no conception, then by day 26, progesterone levels are dropping. By day 26, estrogen has dropped right down. When both of those levels drop, the blood supply to the uterus is cut. And when the blood supply to the uterus is cut, then the blood nest comes away. And we are once again at day 1 of the monthly cycle. That's what it should look like. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like that very much now. Why? Let's have a look at what causes an imbalance. Number 1. 1957, the first contraceptive pill was introduced to women. 1960s is called the sexual revolution. Women wanted to be able to have sex without having a baby. But that pill, that contraceptive pill, has caused massive problems. Has, is, and will. Why? What is it? What does it do? The pharmaceutical companies grow acres and acres of Mexican wild yam. And that Mexican wild yam contains a plant chemical called diosgenin. And in a laboratory, diosgenin can be converted to progesterone. It's called progesterone because it has an identical molecular structure to the progesterone that our body makes. So it can only patent something new, something it creates. So it adds a few more atoms in one area and comes up with this synthetic estrogen. it adds a few more atoms in another area and comes up with a synthetic progesterone. And it is these synthetic hormones that are in the pill. And when the woman takes the pill, these synthetic hormones come in and they're threaded through that biochemical pathway that your body uses to make its own hormones, and it causes abortion. And the body thinks, what's going on? I'm pregnant. And because it thinks it's pregnant, it doesn't release the egg. So the woman doesn't fall pregnant. But if the woman doesn't release the egg, what's not happening? Corpus luteum's not being made. So let me show you what's happening week after week, after month, after year on the pill. The balance should be number 1 progesterone, number 2 estrogen. Month after month on the pill, no ovulation, no corpus luteum. Where's progesterone going? Month after month on the pill with its synthetic estrogen, where's estrogen going? We now have a problem today, sadly too common. It's called estrogen dominance, progesterone deficiency. Good slave, bad master is now the master. Estrogen, with its strong cell proliferator action, causing massive cell growth in the uterus. There's your fibroids. Massive cell growth on the ovaries. There's your cysts on the ovaries. There's your polycystic ovarian syndrome. There's your endometriosis. The endometrium is the name of the tissue lining the uterus. Too much estrogen, the endometrium starts to wander all through the abdominal wall. And every month when the woman bleeds, those little pockets bleed, but they've got nowhere to go. That causes excruciating pain. One 25-year-old girl came to me and she said, I've been to the doctor and he said, I'm going to be all right when I go through menopause. 25 more years of suffering? And he just has acknowledged that in menopause, the levels drop. But if the levels are in balance, they drop like that. But if the levels are out of balance, they drop like that. The imbalance remains. This is the weight gain many women are finding. In their 40s, 50s, 60s, they cannot lose the weight, especially around the breast and the stomach and the hip area. That's where all the estrogen receptor sites are. High estrogen opposes thyroid function. How many women who are on the pill in their 20s are now in their 50s, 60s with thyroid problems? By the way, where's progesterone? Down here. And how does the woman feel the week before her periods? Watch out, she'll bite your head off. I said to one lady, do you have premenstrual tension? She said, oh, I don't think so. I just hate my husband for a week every month. She's got it. And by the way, how does she feel about that? She hates it. She doesn't know what to do about it. One husband said to me, we tried to prepare our, the mother of the home for the 3 weeks. They tried to prepare her, but nothing prepared her. Ooh, there it goes again. Let's have a look. You see, the baby boomers were introduced to the pill. Let's have a look at the baby boomers now. They're in their 50s, 60s, yeah? How are they faring? Hot flushes? That's high estrogen causing capillary dilation, and the husband knows because all the blankets get thrown off in the middle of the night and then they get pulled on again. She has weight gain. She's depressed with progesterone down here. She has no desire for sex. And when she has sex, it's painful because the cells lining the vagina are so tender. There is no women most miserable. And her husband's secretary is looking better all the time. This is a terrible state of affairs. Huh? So she goes to the doctor. She can't bear these hot flushes anymore. She's the CEO of a big company. She's in the middle of a meeting and suddenly the hot flushes come. She's dripping perspiration. She's so embarrassed. So the doctor gives her hormone replacement therapy. More synthetic hormones. The flushes stop. Why? Because the body now thinks it's pregnant. And instead of putting all of its energies into the skin, it puts its energies into the breast and the uterus. 6 years later, she has a lump on her breast, breast cancer. The doctor takes her off HRT immediately. Why? He knows. So you say to the physician, why do you put a woman on HRT if you know it causes breast cancer? This is his answer. Every woman will get breast cancer and it brought her relief. That is true. But you ask the woman, what would you prefer, breast cancer or hot flushes? Bring on the flushes. Huh? I'll get a black lace fan. Yeah? I am not criticizing the doctor because the pharmaceutical companies cannot patent progesterone, and so the doctors are not taught that. And you ask many doctors, they say, we are just whizzed through med school, crammed, the studies crammed in. How can they be expected to retain every little bit? Certainly they retain a lot, they know a lot. But unfortunately, it's not a health industry. Is that true? But I know people that have never been on the pill, and yet they have a hormonal imbalance. There's more. What causes a chicken to be fully developed in 5 weeks? It is growth stimulants. It's against the law to give them growth stimulants now, so they've genetically modified the chickens to produce more estrogen, so they're still growing quickly. And if the human being eats that chicken or that egg, what are they getting? They're getting those growth stimulants. Now, in Australia, we call a baby chicken a chicken and an adult chicken a chook. Have you heard that? Chook. So we have chook farms. So you know what I mean by a chook farm now. So we had a man come to our program and he was 35. He said, I've got 2 mates and their father owns a chook farm. And if your father owns a chook farm, what are you eating morning, noon and night? Chooks. In fact, in Australia, if you go down the road, you can see a sign, roast chook. Now you know. That's a takeaway shop. He said, my mates whose father owned the chook farm, one is 6'4", one is 6'6". They've got a 5'2" mother and a 5'9" father. Where'd that come from? It's those growth stimulants, yeah. And maybe they don't mind being that tall. That's the least of their problems because of all the area that's affecting penile dysfunction, low sperm count. With the girls, it's the daughters of the baby boomers who have the endometriosis, who have the fibroids in the uterus, who have the cysts on the ovaries, who endometriosis. How many couples can't have children? It's just incredible today. So it's in the meat. And when you've got 80% of women on the pill or HRT, they go to the bathroom, the sewage goes out to the seas. They're having reproductive problems in fish now. Female fish with male tendencies, male fish with female tendencies. Ooh. And who eats the fish? Can you see this vicious cycle that's happening? What about cattle? It's against the law in Australia to give cattle growth stimulants. But one cattle farmer's wife said to me, the pharmaceutical companies knock on our door every month pushing the growth stimulants, and they tell us exactly when to stop so it's not picked up when the cattle goes to market. Lentils are tasting, or they're sounding more attractive all the time, is that right? So if it's in the meat, it's in the product. Number 3, but I've met some people, never been on the pill, they're vegetarians, they're vegans, there's more. Plastics. What causes a plastic to be soft? When I was 16, my brother David was 18 and he got his first car. It was a Zephyr, second hand, and the dashboard was cracked. Notice, people from my era, how the dashboard used to crack. It doesn't crack anymore. And that's because there's a softener in there called nonylphenol. Nonylphenol causes the plastics to be soft. But let me show you the problem with that. In the molecular structure of estrogen, there's a phenyl ring. And this phenyl ring is the key that unlocks the door to get into the estrogen receptor site on the cell. So can you see these plastics? They're called estrogen mimickers. There's also bisphenol A. Sometimes you can buy plastic bottles that are BPA free. You've seen that? They don't have the phenols in them. So plastics mimic estrogens. They're called xenoestrogens. Chemicals, herbicides, insecticides. One of the worst is Roundup or glyphosate. Have you heard the latest on that? Was it 18 months ago? A farmer in America got $80 million, was it? Compensation because he could prove that glyphosate or Roundup had caused his cancer. There's also things happening in Australia. It was about 6 months ago, headlines in the newspaper. An Australian farmer and his wife both died of endocrine or pancreatic cancer, directly attributed it to Roundup. We've always been told Roundup's safe, it's just a surface spray. Not so. Don't you wonder about this? We've always been told it's safe. Oh, sorry, it's not. How many are they saying safes today when in a few years it's not going to be? It is not banned. The Sri Lankan government have banned it because so many Sri Lankan farmers were coming down with cancer and their children. These were the rice farmers that were using the Roundup, the glyphosate. So these chemicals have a similar effect to estrogen. They're called xenoestrogens. Let me show you. Here is 3 cells, and here are 3 estrogen receptor sites on the cells. This one is a xenoestrogen. So this is coming from your chemicals, your herbicides, your insecticides. Xenoestrogen is 20,000 times stronger than human. So it's pretty big. So how big is human? Human estrogen is 20,000 times stronger than plant. So how big's the human? It just sits in like this. So how big's the plant? It's a tiny little slip of a thing that just slips into the lining of the receptor site. In fact, the beauty of the plant estrogen, remember Psalm 104 verse 14 where God says that he gave herbs for the soul. So the plant estrogens come along and they knock. They're very polite. They knock on the door and say to the cell, do you need me? And the cell says, no, we've got enough. And so plant estrogen sits at the door, and the beauty of this is it blocks that receptor site so the xeno can't get in. Where do you find plant estrogen? Probably the highest amount. The soy is only a problem if it's been genetically modified and grown with poisons. And the poisons is Roundup. One farmer, 5 times before market, the whole field is sprayed. All the weeds die and the soybean keeps growing. Scary, isn't it? That soybean is a danger. That soybean can increase breast cancer and prostate cancer. It's a pity to put the soybean out because it has the most cancer-fighting properties. Non-GMO and it's organic. If you buy organic, you can be assured it's non-GMO because the organic farmer will not use the genetically modified seed. By the way, those xenoestrogens that are found in plastics and chemicals, they have strong cell proliferator action like the estrone and estradiol. So how do we turn this around? Number 1, eliminate. If you don't turn the tap off, you're still going to be mopping up in the other corner. Eliminate the pill. So how do we stop having babies popping up everywhere? Sex is two-part, contraception should be two-part. I believe the woman's role is to know when she is ovulating, and her body will give her 3 signs. One sign is her temperature will change. So she takes her temperature before she gets out of bed every day, and she will chart it, and she will find that it'll go like this, then it'll drop and go up onto a higher plane. That drop and up onto a higher plane is her sign. And most women will ovulate around day 14. And this allows her to define whether it's day 13 or 14 or 15. The second sign is that her vaginal mucus will change. When estrogen's high, it's white and not as profuse. When progesterone's high, it is clear and stringy and a lot more profuse. So what she does is she tests this every day and she charts it. The third sign is that her cervix changes. She will find that when she is ovulating, there's changes in the cervix. So she tests her cervix every day and charts it. At first, she's got nothing to compare it to. But if she does this every day as the months go by, she starts to see the changes, and she will find that ovulation happens usually within that week there. So she says to her husband, I am safe, I am not safe, I am safe. So when she is not safe, then her husband either masters the art of withdrawal or he wears a condom. And I read an article about the Italian men, how the Italian men prided themselves in not getting their women pregnant by mastering the art of withdrawal. I thought, what an interesting article that the man takes control, because often in society today, and has been for many years, the woman has to take the pill or to have the IUD. Or what they're doing now is sewing patches into women, and they don't have a period for 3 years. No period for 3 years, that's no ovulation for 3 years. Where's progesterone going? Is that woman told if she has that patch in for 3 years, she may have trouble falling pregnant? They are not told that. Is she told that it will increase her risk of breast cancer? These are not told. You can't play around with the body that God gave. You've got to work with it. Well, what about a vasectomy? Well, the studies haven't been done to show how many men that had vasectomies now have prostate problems. Again, you can't cut tubes. You can't play around with this thing. There is an effect. Eliminate meat and its products. For anyone that wants meat and products, I say it must be organic. It's not negotiable today. But please explore the wonders of a vegetarian diet. There are some very good cookbooks there that will show you how to make the food delicious. Plastics. I think it's impossible to eliminate plastics, but do the best you can. Try to store your food in glass, in ceramic, in stainless steel. Cooking. I hope you realize by now, 1976, Russia banned microwaves. And when a person cooks in a microwave, what do they cook in? Plastic. It's the lure of plastic. When you drink out of bottles, try and get the stainless steel or glass or the hard plastic. You can get hard plastic that says BPA free. You can get plastic takeaway containers too that are BPA free, and they're usually the hard plastic that you can't squeeze. And get the chemicals out of your home. We have talked about this. Trust you've all been investigating what's in your laundry cupboard, your laundry detergent, etc., etc., etc. Many people are poisoning themselves in their homes. Never use bleach to kill mold. It creates one of the most toxic mixes. So what do you kill mold with? White vinegar. And once you've cleaned it with white vinegar, get some clove essential oil and wipe it over with that, and then ring up the plumber or the builder and find out why it's there, because it should not be there. If the house is well aerated, there should not be mold in the house. If you don't turn the tap off, you're still going to be mopping up in the other corner. That's the first point. The second point is the liver. It is able to detoxify you from environmental poisons, especially estrogen. And it'll take estrogen down one of two pathways. One pathway is the hydroxy 2 pathway. And when the liver takes the estrogen down the hydroxy 2 pathway, it's out. But if the liver takes the estrogen down the hydroxy 16 pathway, it comes back in 100 times worse. So we don't want, we'll call it highway 16. We don't want highway 16, we want highway 2. So I'm going to give you a list of foods and a list of vitamins that stimulate highway 2 and discourage highway 16. And one is the cabbage family. So this is as simple as eating something from the cabbage family every day. Broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, bok choy. You see, the cabbage family contain indoles. And indoles encourage highway 2, discourage highway 16. Also vitamin B, especially vitamin B6, B12 and B9. So we'll start with B12, B9 and B6. For someone who is looking at balancing their hormones, initially they will need to have a supplement. Also flaxseed. Flaxseed is very high in omega-3, excellent omega fatty acid. If you take flaxseed, grind it just before you use it. Don't buy it already ground because it deteriorates very quickly. Also licorice. If you have high blood pressure, forget the licorice, and this is the herb licorice. These are the things that stimulate highway 2, which is eliminating the estrogen, and inhibit highway 16. So the first point is eliminating the cause. The second point is taking out the excess estrogen. The third point is a cream called the Anna's Wild Yam Cream. The Anna's Wild Yam Cream is an Australian cream, and this cream contains diosgenin. And when that cream is applied to the skin, the fat cells take it up and it stimulates your body to make its own progesterone. So what the Anna's Wild Yam Cream does, it contains the plant chemical diosgenin applied to the skin. The fat cells take it up and it stimulates the pathway that your body uses to make progesterone. That's why I like this cream, because it works with the body's processes. In America, you can buy progesterone cream off the shelf, and initially that may help, but if you keep putting progesterone in, the body gets lazy and doesn't make it anymore. So initially that can give a kick start, but then the person needs to go over to Anna's Wild Yam Cream. The 2 health retreats that I work at in the US both sell the Anna's Wild Yam Cream. So this is Eden Valley Retreat, and that is in Denver, Colorado. And the other one is Living Springs in Roanoke, Alabama. So you can email or ring either of those retreats and you can get the Anna's Wild Yam Cream from there. How do you apply it? 1 finger dip. So that's the finger going in just past the nail bed. That's just the right amount. So you do it, apply it twice a day. Inside of arms 1 time, chest another time, abdomen another time, inside of thighs another time. For 3 weeks a month. If she's still menstruating, she applies it for the 3 weeks that she's not menstruating. If she has finished menstruation, she chooses 1 week of the month where she applies it. Ideally, a woman should be on it for 1 year. One lady said to me, I tried the Anna's Wild Yam Cream, but it didn't work. I said, how long were you on it for? She said 2 months. Well, let me show you what's happening at 2 months. She's got the imbalance, okay? After 2 months, we're about here. Where do we want to be? Here. It might have taken 20 years to get out of balance, but it won't take 20 years to get into balance. Isn't that good news? But give it a year, maybe a little bit more. One lady went on the yam cream. She'd been on the pill for 7 years when she was young. She'd been on the pill for 7 years from something, she finished when she was 22, I think. And now she's in her mid-50s and she's getting hot flushes. So she went on the yam cream. The flushes stopped. She stopped after a year and the flushes came back. What's the body need? A little bit more. So she went back on it for 6 months and then stopped again, no more flushes. So you see there's a little bit of playing to see how much your body needs. So when a woman goes on the Anna's Wild Yam cream, it reduces the flushes by getting the estrogen down and boosting the progesterone. It'll boost her mood. I've seen many get off their antidepressants by implementing the 8 laws of health we've talked about. Remember, that's your foundation, applying the yam cream. And little by little, as the estrogen reduces and the happy hormone boosts, they can ease off their antidepressants. Isn't that good news? How many people do you know on antidepressants every year? What happens? More and more. It's just not working. I've also seen women with thyroid problems recover by taking the Anna's Wild Yam cream. Remember, high estrogen opposes thyroid function. By going on the yam cream, boosts progesterone, gets estrogen down, and along with a few other things, helps the thyroid to recover. I met a 90-year-old lady who was on the Anna's Wild Yam cream for osteoporosis. You see, progesterone boosts bone-building cells. So let's look at the postmenopausal woman. Yes, it will help her to lose weight because it gets the estrogen down. Yes, it will help her mood by boosting progesterone. Yes, it will help with her desire for sex. But it can take a while to heal those other areas of a very tender birth canal and no lubricant. So something else is becoming popular that helps in those areas, which I will show you in a minute. But first of all, I also want to talk about another lady that I put on the yam cream, and that was for migraines at period time. Can you see that? You can have 10 women with a hormonal imbalance and all will have different symptoms. But when I was in the Bronx many years ago, I met a woman. She was the mother of a little 9-year-old girl. She got breasts at 8 and she had her periods at 9. And I advised she go on the yam cream because that's a hormonal imbalance. Someone with fibroids, they need to go on the yam cream because that high estrogen is feeding those fibroids. So going on the 8 laws of health, implementing the yam cream, and then applying, do you remember the compress? Castor oil compresses. So we're coming to a time of the week where you can start to pull from the different meetings you've heard for a certain condition. What about a man? Because men are not cyclic, they just apply it twice a day and have no break. I had a man come to do our program who had prostate cancer. He was having a 3-monthly injection to get his testosterone levels down. They were still high. He developed breasts and he was having hot flushes. You see, high estrogen causes high testosterone. And he had high estrogen because of all of these things here. His mother had been on the pill. He was a high meat eater. He was exposed to a lot of chemicals. Can you see all of those things were contributing to it? So he made a decision after coming to our retreat to have no more injections, to begin applying the Anna's Wild Yam cream, to implement the 8 laws of health. He stopped his coffee, he stopped his nightly red wine, he started to become a vegan. His wife emailed me 10 months later. She said he's just had a test and his testosterone levels are the best they have been for years. and the breasts have gone down, and he has no more hot flushes. Isn't it wonderful that there are some simple remedies that work with the healing powers of the body? I have had a few men thank me. One man said, "This stuff just puts lead in my pencil." So what about the menopausal woman and the unfortunate situation of painful intercourse? Well, something's becoming popular today. It's called the yoni stones. And the yoni stones were developed in the Chinese dynasty to help the young concubines be sexually toned for the emperor. And these yoni stones are made out of nephrite jade. So they're like a green marble. And they need to be like that because of what happens with them. So let me draw the three sizes. So this would be the largest stone, and then the middle-sized stone, and then the smaller stone. Maybe that middle size is just a little bit smaller. And there are two little holes in the bottom, and a woman can put dental floss in there for easy extraction. Now what a woman does is she will insert the yoni stone until it touches the cervix. She cannot feel that it is there. And she will wear it for 1 hour a day for week 1. 2 hours a day, week 2. Bear with me. 3 hours a day, week 3 she will wear it. 4 hours a day, week 4. 5 hours a day, week 5. By the time she's up to 5 hours a day, her pelvic girdle is so strong that she can at 5 hours a day for maybe 6 months. By then, she can go over to the middle-sized stone, and she will wear that 5 hours a day for 6 months. And then she will go over to the smaller stone. One lady said to me that her daughter, after she'd got down to the middle-sized stone, her daughter, who was 35, says, "Mummy, you finished with the large one? Can I have it now?" Yeah, she certainly can. So let me tell you what's happening. But first of all, I want to draw the pelvic girdle and show you what's happening. So let's stretch out the lady's pelvic girdle. And this is what the pelvic girdle looks like stretched out. And there's the coccyx bone, and there is the belly button, and here is the urethra, the vagina, and the anus. So it's a muscular system that's like this. But when it comes to these orifices, the muscles are like this. Muscle, 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 muscle. It's a whole muscular system. And when a woman wears the yoni stones internally, she strengthens her pelvic girdle internally. And what ladies have told me is that the cells lining the birth canal are no longer tender. And the lubricant has returned. Because when the pelvic girdle holds that stone, it increases blood supply to the area because it has to hold the stone. And the blood supply increase feeds the nerves and feeds the glands that make the lubricant. And I've also had couples come to me and say, "We just want to thank you, Sister Barbara. Revived our sex life." The husband now has help with his yam cream. The lady has help with her yam cream. Her desire has increased, and sex is no longer painful. They just said, we're in our 50s. We thought it was a little bit early to stop. Thank you. My daughter gave birth to her last baby 8 years ago at the age of about 30. And her midwife, she had a home birth story. The midwife said, "I had a prolapse." Now these prolapses are incredibly uncomfortable for a woman. It's where the uterus drops right down to the opening to the vagina. Incredibly uncomfortable. It has been usual that women in their 80s are getting it, but now we're seeing women in their 50s and 60s, even 40s, having prolapses. So this lady said to my daughter, I went to the doctor and he said he could repair it with mesh. Now in Australia, Johnson & Johnson have just been sued for millions of dollars by thousands of women who've had the operation, and the mesh has caused so many problems. Is the problem the mesh? The problem's not the mesh. The doctor has to use mesh because the cells are so weak, lack so much nourishment, he's got nothing to sew together. I had two ladies do our program months apart, both in their 50s, both had prolapses, both had the operation with mesh, both times it didn't work. Then they had to endure the discomfort of this prolapse and the mesh before they could go back in and have a full hysterectomy. And when they heard this, they said, if only known. Because my daughter's midwife, when she heard what they wanted to do, she didn't want that. So she Googled prolapse and she discovered yoni stones. She ordered the nephrite jade yoni stones. She began to wear them as I described. She went back to the doctor 3 months later. He said, I cannot understand what's happened with you, but you no longer have a prolapse. It's just muscles. And muscle knows no age. Whether you are 9 or 90, you can have strong muscles. So ladies, every day, okay? Every day. If you can't do that, build up to it. Start with your back against the wall. They have a lot of trouble with my microphone because I don't say still. Sorry, it's my fault. So squatting. Also exercises that strengthen your core. Your Pilates type exercise. Crunches. Ladies, are you doing your crunches every day? It's so easy. All you have to do is lift your head off the ground. Boom, boom, boom. So easy. So easy. We are training for something more important than the Olympic Games. We're training for life. We're training for our latter years. And God's work is suffering because the saints are sick and they're weak. So, no excuse. We're going to start training. Get those muscles strong. So squatting to go to the bathroom. You'll learn about that tomorrow when I look at the gut. And internally, you can strengthen that pelvic girdle by wearing the yoni stones. My daughter, my eldest daughter, 15 years ago, she gave birth to twins. Both twins were 6 pounds. Now, that's a lot of weight on a little lady. She said if she put her hand out, her stomach came to the middle knuckle. That's a lot. She gave birth to both of her babies naturally. But she said for the next year, if she laughed or coughed, she'd lose a little urine. She heard about the yoni stones. She ordered them. She began to wear them. Within 3 months, she could cough, she could laugh, she would not lose any urine. It's muscles. Do you see the muscles? It's just muscles. So any lack of strength in the anal sphincter, in the birth canal, or in the urethral can be strengthened by exercise. Strength comes by exercise. There is no other way. So it can heal incontinence. It can heal prolapse. It can certainly revive intimacy between a couple. And once a woman is strong, she can gift her yoni stones to her daughters. And maybe when the whole family's strong, maybe the granddaughters are coming up. All up. And there is one exercise that particularly strengthens this area, and that is rebounding. If a woman's just had a baby and she gets on the rebounder or the little mini trampoline, she'll lose a little urine, is that right? And that shows you that that's the very muscle that is strengthened when you're rebounding. One 78-year-old lady heard about these. She had prolapse and she had incontinence, so she ordered the yoni stones. She said, I put the largest one in and it just fell straight out. Do you know what that shows? No muscle at all. She said, what can I do? I said, start rebounding for about 5 minutes, 3 times a day, and that will strengthen your pelvic muscle, and so you will be able to wear the yoni stone. You have a look at the Olympian athletes, what they go through to train for the Olympic Games. But you know what it says in 1 Corinthians 9, starting at about 24, know you not that they that run in a race run all, but one receives the prize? Therefore so run that ye may receive. For every man that strives for the mastery is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, we an incorruptible. I therefore so run, but not as uncertainly. So fight I, but not as one that beats the air. I keep under my body. I bring it into subjection, if by any means when I have preached to others, I myself might be a castaway. You can now see by my lecture this evening that this is often the missing link, is the of the hormones. We have been deceived. That great deceiver that has deceived the whole world has deceived in so many ways. It is time to bring that balance back. Let us bow our heads and close. Father, thank you so much for the information you've given us tonight. Thank you so much that you love us so dearly and that your Holy Spirit has been promised to each one of us to convict us and to guide us and to lead us in the way of life. For we know, Father, for you have said that your wish is that above all things we may each prosper and be in health, even as our soul prospers. Thank you for hearing our prayer tonight, for we pray it in the wonderful name of Jesus. Amen. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning, where we talk about child nutrition, and anyone who was a child should be there. And tomorrow night we'll go on a journey through your